Welcome to the StayiN Wild and Well podcast. I am so excited because today I have my very second guest on the podcast. You know, this all goes back to the book that I'm writing. These interviews are feeding into what will come out into the world as something for you to read that I am so excited. More so, I'm excited about today's guest because I am joined by someone extremely special to me today. Mischa is an energy alchemist, intuitive guide, and a beautifully creative soul. She moves through life with an open heart and a deep reverence for transformation. And what makes this conversation even more special is Mischa has been a client of mine. Mischa is a client of mine, and I've quite literally seen Mischa go from root to flow. Her courage, her tenacity, the way she moves through life, the things that she has gone through, I have goosebumps. I cannot wait for you to hear her story. I've witnessed her journey firsthand and the courage she has had as she moves through this life. Mischa weaves sound energy work into experiences that are grounding, deeply personal, and profoundly transformational. She offers her clients a safe container for them to show up and be them with intention, care, and respect for their unique path and the path that each person walks individually. She guides them back to their natural frequency and their inner truth, and I am just so excited for you to be here with me today and watch this conversation firsthand and hear all about Mischa's incredible transformation and courage. Welcome to the StayiN Wild and Well podcast. My name is Rin, and my greatest accomplishment is being alive. Here we talk about life's journey, the ups, the downs, the in-betweens, all things mental health, body, mind, and spirit. We share wild stories and keeping your wild alive while staying well. All right, welcome, Mischa. So
Thank you.
Already did your intro, your bio, which you're going to see after the fact, but I thought we would just get started by you letting the audience know, telling them a little bit about who you are, coming from your voice.
Okay, I love that. I'm excited to see the bio after. Yes, so I'm Mischa. I'm a creative through and through. I'm a lover, I'm a dreamer, I'm a leader, and ultimately that shows up in the work that I do. So I am in the wellness space where I work with the modalities of sound, Reiki, and divination to help people and guide them through their walks of life and their journeys. And I'm a creative person that just, has a background in music, and that background in music actually transferred into the sound. And all of these elements in my life have weaved together. So being a multidimensional person is just something I take a lot of pride in.
Which I love, because I was going to say, you got to tell people about your music and your talent, because, you're on my gym playlist, so
I'm honored.
If you haven't checked out Mischa's music, absolutely, we're going to make sure it's in the show notes so people can check it out.
Thank you.
So why don't we jump right into the questions?
Absolutely.
So I'm doing a lot of this because I'm writing a book. People reached out saying, the interviews you've been doing privately, why don't you turn them into the podcast? We want to watch, we want to see. And you've been so open that you are a client of mine. You've been a client. I've been so blessed to walk alongside your journey to see, I get goosebumps when I talk about it. The transformation has been incredible. And a lot of the book speaks to what I do with clients, that root to flow process. And you've gone through it yourself, who you were to who you are today. So I'm going to jump into some questions and we're just going to see where it goes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we ever worked together, what were some of the stories you carried about yourself and the world? And this really stems back to our identity and who we believe and think we are.
Yeah, and it's an amazing question. And something about this, I've noticed that there's conscious and subconscious beliefs. And within that, even just reflecting on what those stories and beliefs have been prior to our work, just noticing how they show up as well. And something we'll go to body image, or, before we got together and started working together, I couldn't leave the house without a full face of makeup. That was a big one for me. And that's why I show up here with the fresh face, because it's something I've worked past. And, a lot of that being tied to worth, which is, it's when you start to unravel it and peel back the layers, it's just insane what you find. The amount of should statements that were so part of my belief structure and not just for myself, but for others. All of these beliefs that I was implementing on others around just, the biases and what's picked up, whether we're familiar with it or not. A big thing for me was that I couldn't ask for help. Asking for help is a sign of weakness, right? And that was what was playing over and over again in my head. Oh, I have to adapt to this group of people, to this environment, so they like me. Oh, I have to make sure that I'm showing up 100% for them, not for me, for them. And all of this, after we started working together, it was just insane that, the light that was shined down upon all of it, and just so revealing, because you look at it one day and you're like, wait, where did that come from?
So when you say like there was a part of you that didn't feel like you could ask for help, or like shouldn't ask for help, what happened? Like, what made you decide, like, you know what, I'm gonna ask for help? Like, what made you reach out? What was it inside of you that called you to finally make that step? Because that's hard for some people, that first step.
It is hard. And it's something that I noticed that it's still hard, right? It's just because you're like, yes, I did it, I tackled it. It doesn't make it any less hard when it shows up, especially when it's something that you once so firmly believed and gave roots to, right? And the support around me was very much like, hey, you can ask for help. Already helping me, right? But also letting me know that I can ask for help beyond them. And it was my partner, Jaquan, and he's the one who actually said, hey, I think you need to reach out to Sabrina. And it's because we knew each other through work, and I wasn't necessarily, like, I was familiar, but I wasn't familiar with what it was you did.
And we had a connection automatically. I remember it was kind of like, I see you, you see me, I know, you know me.
When I first met you, I'm like, who is this person? Because she's looking right through me. Like, it made me almost uncomfortable, right? Because like it prompted questions, and I'm like, no, she knows more. But Jaquan, telling me you need to reach out, and me finally getting to that point, I think we all have a breaking point, right? And it's up to us, because we can't have anybody saying, hey, I think you need to reach out for help. It's still on us. And it was that breaking point for me where, like, I can't live like this, because I don't know if I will get to the point where I get to live my life. And that's just the truth of it. You get to your rock bottom or to your dark place, and you're finally like, wow, let me just like reach my hand up and just take the freaking help.
So when you say like, I can't live like this, the audience has no idea what live like this is. And I know what Mischa's gone through, and in a short period of time, and long at the same time, like goosebumps are coming again. Tell us a little bit about your story. Who were you before you came to me? What had you experienced? What had you gone through? There was so much there.
Mischa was so resilient. And I will say, I am still very resilient, but there was such an identity attached to it. And it was let me persevere. Hardship? We don't know hardship, right? We just move through it. That's it. We just bury it down and move through it. Emotion? Well, happy's the only emotion that's worth feeling, right? And that was so much of me, like how I was moving through. And to touch on those hardships, because I am such an open book, and especially when people ask the questions, if someone's like, hey, I am interested, why don't you share a little bit, absolutely. Those hardships in 2022, that's when you and I began working together. And in 2022, I had just gone through one hell of a year, and there was copious amounts of death, just on such a wide scale of like the relationships to me in my life. And it wasn't just that though, it was everything else. And I had started noticing at this point where I'm riddled with depression, I'm riddled with anxiety. I can't wake up in the mornings properly. I'm a shell of a human. I'm disassociating, I'm shaking, I'm not present when I want to be present. And all of these little pieces, I'm like, look at these problems. Look at all these problems that are going on for me, not realizing that those were symptoms of the problems. And, that there were roots to it. There's roots to this. This isn't just coming up for no reason. And dealing with the copious amounts of death that year in 2022, and my body was talking to me. My body was talking to me a lot. I was in and out of the hospital for chest pains. I was diagnosed for bipolar type 2. That was something that was in the works, but I'm sure you can imagine at the time too, all of a sudden you're being hit with, you have this, you've got that, or, oh, you want answers for that? You're not gonna get them from us over here. And the endometriosis as well. And all of these ailments were showing up in my body. When I say like I couldn't go on, like I was in pain. I was crying. I wanted to be in the corner, in the dark room, blanket over top. I wanted to just cut myself off from the world. My relationships were suffering. I was suffering. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was like, well, if I don't know who I am, why be here? And that's to the extent of that, right? Like it can go into such depths, and that was for me that rock bottom where I'm like, wow, like I really don't want to be here anymore. And I have so much to offer myself and the world. Like I deserve to be here. I need help. So being in that place, it is hard to like reach out for that hand, but oh my goodness, am I so happy I did, because whew, like, and I'm sitting here chuckling because I know, and I think we only ever really know our own journeys, and we can look back. But like I said to you when, as we connected this morning, it's been 3 years now. September marks 3 years that we've been working together, and whew, mind blown.
And like, I keep smiling when you're talking because I'm like, who is this woman? Like the transformation, right? Yeah, and that's why the mind, body, spirit report I find is so important, because like I've been there too. I remember, and I recently just had like a doctor's appointment that I had to do a screening for, and they started saying, so you have this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And the last time I had been to the doctors, it was like, I don't know, almost a decade ago. Yeah. I'm like, no, I don't have that. No, I don't have that. I'm like all insulted, but I remember when I first did this test at the doctor's, of course I had all of those things. Because when we're going through what we're going through, when we're not listening to our mind or taking the signals, the small little whispers over time, body's like, hey, you haven't been listening, listen to me. You are gonna get all these symptoms. And I think it's so important to state, like, those are real symptoms.
100%.
They are real. Yes. What you are feeling is real. But we want to start to understand where they actually come from, because it doesn't have to be a life sentence. Yeah. And there's some like rewiring there that we could do. Yeah. So like, where did your rewiring begin? Because we identified with all of these things at first, and now, I mean, I barely hear about those things. Yeah. So, and it's okay when I do. It's okay when you feel them, because you know where they come from. It's just the way you handle them, deal with them, understand them is very different. So what happened there?
It's the understanding part. It's the seeing them. It's when you stop trying to hide them and you're like, okay, well, let me just look at it. Let me at least look at it. So I'm going to say that that's where it started. You being like, look at this. Just, that's it. I don't want you to do anything else, but do you see, just wondering if you see it. So within that, we started talking about the beliefs and where those stories and beliefs have come from through our lives. So having an understanding of the conscious and the subconscious beliefs that are going on. And when I even say subconscious beliefs, for example, my relationship with money, and that's something that's just kind of living in the back. And then until you and I started doing some deeper work on it, and it was brought and it was, hey, look at this. Well, that was a subconscious belief, that relationship that I was creating with it going on in the background. And when we first did our beliefs and the stories, what's so funny, because to me, the one that like sticks out the most,
I'm thinking about it in my head, I know.
is the toilet seat.
Yeah.
So I'm Peruvian, and in our culture, and I'm sure in other cultures too, well, toilet seat's always down. When you're flushing the toilet seat, it's down. When in the bathroom, otherwise money's going down the toilet. Anyways, it's funny, tying into money beliefs there.
Yes.
So money's going down the toilet if that toilet seat is up. So you have to keep it down to keep the money in the house. And just being like, well, wait, where does that come from? And the looking into it, it was something but I just do this. I was just told about this. And you can see with the validity that's behind it.
And like, this is like a light and fluffy example, but not really, because when we think about what it goes back to and the beliefs that it stems to, it's much deeper. But that's even like from a cultural standpoint, religion, culture, spirituality, relationships. This is where the root to flow is like, well, everything you have been taught has now become a belief, and what you believe now impacts how you show up as a person. And so what is actually you? So when you started to look at all these things, I'd love to know what oh my God, what is actually me? Like, starting to unpack these, how did that feel for you? Because if someone is starting to do this work, what do they expect?
So a variety of emotions. It is. There's the eureka moments, but sometimes with the eureka moments, you think that you have this like, oh my God, that's it. I've got the answer.
Oh, we always think that.
You know, I'm so enlightened. But it actually just unravels so much more. And there will be pieces of yourself that looks back, and you sometimes don't offer yourself the most compassion when you look back. And that's just the honesty of it. There's moments where you look at the old you and the new you, and you're like, we're two different beings. Sorry, like that. And you start to judge when it's just you. And it's all you.
All parts.
It's all you at the end of the day. And it can be jarring to finally see that and to accept that. So you're gonna have these battles with acceptance and with emotion and identity and just peeling back the layers, and it's very raw and it's very tender, and it's very rewarding and worth it. Because if this work was just so easy, well, you know the saying, well, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? And well, none of us would have anything to work on, and we'd all be perfect beings going through the world, but that's just not the reality, and it's not the truth, and it won't ever be the truth. And the acceptance of that is the big part, because even when we're on these journeys, you know, we can get hooked on the journey of it and the self-development, when this is the journey. It's not going to end. It's not going anywhere. This is it. We're on this path. This is the moment. This is the presence. This is where you are. The little map of you are here. Like
100%. And that's why, you know, I've been so transparent with my clients, saying like, I have a coach. I see somebody, because like when this journey ends, I feel like my work here ends. Like, I'm forever a student of life. And that's something I want to highlight too, because it's such an inspiration for me, the amount of dedication you have had for yourself, like 3 years of consistency going through. And even like, let's be honest, there are times we had this conversation, you're done. You don't want to do session. You don't want to talk about it. I'm done. So like, what does that feel like?
You know, it's great, more work. And we've had that conversation a few times where it's like, I just want to I don't want to do any more work. And it feels, it's funny, it feels like a very real struggle, because the truth is, we're gonna feel done.
Yes.
Like we're gonna not want to continue to do more work. Oh great, something else to achieve. Can't I just sit here for a little bit longer? And it's going to feel like the okay, well, another step and another step, and like you're just trying to reach the top. And I think that's why knowing the journey, is never like the moment we're gone, well, our journey, comes to an end, right? And I mean, well, I believe that the soul's journey continues, right? So, but that life here that we had on earth, it comes to the end. But no one's ever getting that perfection. No one's ever.
But we'll try.
Where's the award that doesn't exist that I can aim for?
So I want to bring people into the depths of your story. Mm-hmm. So you've gone through a lot, and of course I'm leaving this open for you to share. But what do you think about childhood and how it impacts who you show up as? I recently had Susan, who Susan is, on the podcast, and she was saying, I don't actually think my childhood impacted who I was or who I am today. I think it happened more when I was a young adult. And of course, I was like, well, we can really get into this because I can bring it back. But we didn't have all the time.
Of course.
And she knew what I was going to say because we've had multiple conversations. But this is why I love these conversations, because I also want to be pushed to the limits, because I'm writing this book, and how does it play into the things that I'm saying? So bring people into some of the things you've gone through, and maybe how you think it's impacted how you showed up, like who Mischa was, and even some of that struggle today still.
Yeah. Within all of the childhood experiences, right? I personally, in my experience, I've seen how it's shaped me throughout my whole life. And within that, even growing up being bullied, right? That showing up in my life today, and even I'm going to say ongoing, well, it was always so hard to make friends. Mm-hmm. And to the point where even, we'll go back to 3 years ago, or, even 2 years ago, a year ago, where there's still is it okay? Can I trust this person? So it's just the elements of trust, the elements of connection and relationships, which, even as I say that, those are pretty foundational pieces to someone's life and what they'll encounter. At home, it was a rough environment, and I always say this, and I can't even say I always say this. I've said it recently because of the understanding that I have associated with it. But our parents are just being parents for their first time.
Give me the goosebumps. Yes.
They're human. They're being parents for the first time. They have their own things that they have carrying with them. And just like all of us, this is such a new experience, right? So I do hold space for that. And growing up, it was a rougher childhood. We did not have a lot of money. We would go to the food bank. My father had addiction issues, as well as alcoholism, right? Which I just put addiction very much, because it can go to
all
the
same
extent of shopping and gambling, right? So
different math.
Exactly. So with addiction and making it so my comfort wasn't the most safe in the house, and because of the bullying outside, I didn't feel safe outside of the house. So when the safety's removed from you and you're growing up, well, how are you going to feel safe in any environment? And that was something, I've been working through over the years. And to be honest, we know how things continue to show up. I'm sure it's going to be something I'm working through till the end, because of how
the wiring. It is. Yep.
And then taking the moment to observe and all of that. But even within all of that, as well as the food bank as well, there's these moments that I see now, which I feel very grateful to be able to look back at it with love. Right? And just a certain amount of compassion in my heart. But they are very real things that people go through. And, I say that, and I acknowledge that I can look back on it now like that, because there's a lot of people in their journey that may take them longer to do.
And even when you say that, right, it's like we also don't want to like spiritually bypass that because we see that it's like their first time as parents. And no, it's like, let's acknowledge that this is still real. This still hurts. It still pops up, but I can see it in both like layers and lenses.
Yeah, which has been like very grateful for that, again, with the observation and the understanding that's behind it. And, you know, that's the thing too. You go through all these hardships, right? Hardship after hardship. There was so many, you know, deaths that happened within my friendship groups at young ages as well, deaths in the family at young ages as well. And you go through all these hardships. Well, something that we're talking about that comes with us, well, we get hooked to the hardship. We get that attachment to the chaos and to being like, well, I am the victim.
Yeah, so it becomes normal and a part of the identity. And
yeah. So I would say that those things definitely have, you know, going from childhood even to this point now, have very much played a role in my life.
So one of the things I'm talking about in the book, and like what you and I have talked about and what we know from humanity, is when we go through hardship, what's the brain's number one job?
Wants to protect us.
So we get these fun things called coping mechanisms. Let me come up with some great coping mechanism so you don't have to deal with going to the food bank. You don't have to deal with what your parents are going through, the addiction. And I have goosebumps because your story hits me, because you're also a mirror to like a lot of what I had gone through in my childhood, which I always think is like fascinating how we meet these people who mirror us. But why don't you tell the audience a little bit about like what your coping mechanisms have been and moving through some of that?
For sure. Oh, coping mechanisms.
Thank you, coping mechanisms.
Oh my goodness. You know what? For me, a big thing, food. I think that food has been the most consistent coping mechanism for me. Now, when you say that, you're probably like, you know, when just food, right? Like nom 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 nom, just eating it down, but also let me restrict myself from it, right? And I have seen both ends of the spectrum there, because there is with disordered eating.
Yeah.
And the emotional eating, being able to control. I found that was a really big thing for me. When the chaos is going on and I turn to food, well, I can control what I'm eating. And I want it to be the most delicious meal ever. But then when Uber Eats goes and messes up my order 8 times out of 10, well, I'm done. Why? This is a waste. This isn't what I wanted. And food has really been that number one coping mechanism. Alcohol was a big coping mechanism for me as well. I began drinking at a young age. I began smoking weed, taking drugs recreationally at a young age. And it was just before, I think about 6 months before you and I connected, that I realized the effect it was playing in my life, with the history in my family of addiction, because it, you know, not just my father, but his father, and of course it goes back there. I didn't want that to be a part of my life. But boy, did it feel good when I was able to be like, oh, I don't have to deal with that. Let me just turn to whichever alcohol was flavor of the week, right? And 6 months before we connected, I was like, nope, drinking, no. So I chopped that one. And that's very important for me, you know? It's been almost 4 years. That's crazy.
It is, because it doesn't mean that the knocking stops.
It doesn't.
And that's what I wanted to talk about too, right? Like, so we get these coping mechanisms, and I want to honor the food one for a minute, because, you know, I've been very transparent and open about my own struggles with food and coping. And that will be forever my coping mechanism, and something I think I'll have to work on forever, in the sense of like, it's there. My brain knows this is the answer. It's whether I answer that call or not. And it gets easier and easier and easier. But how do you overcome that? Like, there's a knocking inside. The coping mechanism, I actually heard from a Rich Roll podcast before. He had said, your coping mechanism, and I resonated so much, it will always be in a dark room waiting for you when it's time, knocking. And it's whether you answer it or not. So how, like, if somebody's struggling with alcohol and that's their coping mechanism, or food or whatever, how do you overcome that? And specifically for food, and why I said I want to honor it, is like, you have to befriend food. It's not just like alcohol, I'm done. You need food to survive.
You need it to survive.
So you have to create a relationship now with that coping mechanism. That is hard work.
Yep. It's I would say the observation part of it. There was something so eye-opening about even being able to address it in a different way. We know, right? And we always know. We're like, oh yeah, maybe I'm leaning a little bit more towards this. Oh, maybe I'm doing that or that. We know our behaviors, even if we choose to consciously be aware of them. And I'll say it right now. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work to be able to break down the relationship with a coping mechanism, to the point where I will say this, because I just believe in so much truth. I'm still working on mine with food, right? I think that that's going to be something that comes with me. Well, I can't see the end, right? And I'm okay with that. Acceptance. I think that's the biggest thing when we're working through something. I just think that's the biggest thing in general. I mean, really, like, look, when you look at everything, it really ties back to an acceptance. Because even if you're working through it and you're not where you want to be, because we all, we have our goals, we know what we're striving for, there's beauty in where we are and in that moment of the journey. There's beauty in being like, hey, I wasn't observant of this before. Oh, I wasn't able to step back and just watch it do its thing. There's so much beauty within that. And I think also the other thing, just because you see it, and I know that this I don't want this to get misconstrued, because I do think we need to deal with our things, especially if they're playing a harmful role in our lives. I think it's worth looking into. But at the end of the day, right, just because you see it, you don't have to immediately act on it. That might not be the best move, where all of a sudden you're like, and go straight into action, and I'm going to take care of this and take care. You might need more foundational work before that, because everybody is different with where they're at. Everyone's different with where the coping mechanism has stemmed from, and there's different roots to it, because there's not a one size fits all.
So, like, let's be transparent for a minute, right? Mm-hmm. You're going through something right now with your father, right? So do you want to share?
Absolutely, yeah. So right now, my father was diagnosed with an aggressive rare cancer in June. And unfortunately, with the, lack of treatment options, he's opting for no treatment. So at the moment, it is just a very heavy, loving, raw
lots of
journey,
things coming up. Lots of things.
With grief and love and loss and life.
And so why I bring that up is some of your coping mechanisms popped up.
Yeah.
And what did I say to some of them? I was like, well, we're just...
If it wants in,
we're letting it be here right now. It doesn't mean that we're not going to work on them. Yeah. We're going to observe them and see. And this was huge for me, because when I went through my awakening, and I do the air quotes, because I think when you've reached that level, like, even saying the word awakening, like, I don't know, newfound awareness, like, because you've connected to that egoic self. I even find saying my awakening is my ego.
I know.
It is my ego. So, but my point is like, all my coping mechanisms had stopped. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, I don't need anything. And then life happens, and then I watch them creep their way back in. And what I have discovered in multiple conversations now, and I put a pause on writing my book because I was like, shit, this is not going to go as I thought it was. I thought the end was like, you don't need coping mechanisms. No. So I even put a pause on the book because I was like, oh my God, I have to let this integration sit for a little bit because humans need coping.
Humans need coping.
And I'm not saying go drink a bottle of alcohol, go do the drugs, go emotionally eat, but coping shows up differently. I had a friend, and I shared this with Susan, she would bake all day long.
Yeah.
She's not baking for anybody. I don't know who she's baking for, but this has become her coping mechanism. Yeah. Her poor partner. you know, so coping can show up in many different ways, and it can impact you at different levels, and you need to watch that teeter. Yeah. And I think that that's what's really beneficial about working with somebody, even because I'm like, let them be there. We're going to monitor them. We're going to see what happens here, right? And of course, we don't want to like cause harm to our body. But for you, what has been the experience of being like, well, I think I'm going to watch them be here for now. I know that I don't want them like to go too far. And this might sound counterintuitive, right? I'm like, don't go do drugs. I'm not saying do any of that stuff. So like, what has that been like?
So it was very hard at first.
Judgment,
right? The judgment absolutely comes in. The lack of compassion comes in. That little voice in your mind that's like, wow, can't believe you're doing that, which is the judgment, which is the, you know, the one, you need this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Telling you why you need it.
I'm like, hold on. So the same voice that's telling me I need this is the same one that's judging me for it?
Who are you and why do you live here?
You know, and just being face to face with that was very, it was a little jarring.
Yeah.
It was. But the moment, because I've gone through it twice this year, to be so transparent with weed. And, you know, I had a friend pass in November, and it hit me very deep. There was a big transformation in December where I could no longer be at the job that I was at, and had to make a choice. And I was like, what the F is happening in life? And of course, it was weed's been there for me before. Weed's allowed me to get through this before, so weed comes back. Right?
Hey, old friend.
Hey. And at the beginning of the year, and I want to use this as a particular example, because at the beginning of the year, in our conversations, the amount of guilt and judgment and shame that I was putting on me having a coping mechanism.
Even when you brought it up, right? You were like, I didn't tell you something, and I'm like waiting for like something so bad. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then you tell me, and I'm like, okay. But the way you worked it up, I could feel the pain and that guilt just following you, that bully.
Yeah. I was like, this is separate from me. This is nothing to, like, I want it as far gone as possible. And, you know, I did end up stopping for a few months, you know, and it was just me going, you know what? No, it's not time. Like, it was not the me being super hard on myself. I'm sure I got to that point, but that's not the final thing that did it. It was, no, it is time for me to, you know, what is in alignment with me? And then when later this year, of course, so like this past summer, you know, finding everything out about my dad, it has been a year, but finding everything out about Dad and turning to it again. And there was a part of me that was like, oh man, I can't believe you did so well and you stopped it again. And, you know, now you're back. And then I stopped and I was like, wait, especially after our conversation. And, you know, I was kind of already feeling like a little ease, and then you said it. And sometimes and this is why it's good to have the coach, right? Yeah. Because sometimes you do need to hear it from, you know, the person that you're working with that's supporting you along the way. And it was like well, what if you just allow it to be for the moment and observe it? How is it showing up? When is it showing up? And going into that, and holy crap, my relationship with it, you know, Am I still, needing it? Yeah, I'm going through a freaking tough time. And right now, that's what the moment's calling for. But looking at it and holding the space and being like, this is a tool. This does not have power over me right now. Like, I'm using this as a tool. It's not the power. I have the power to use this as a tool. Again, it takes time, but that has been so pivotal in being like, I see you coping mechanism.
And it's recognizing, right? And like, I want to make sure we're being super real here and saying, we're not saying go do that drug or go do the alcohol. You have to understand you and what it's done to your life, right? Like if alcohol has ruined your life and all your finances and relationships have fallen apart, probably not a good thing to say, I'm going to watch this come in here right now.
And it is a good example to use that because I will, again, with the alcohol, right? There's been times where it's like, ooh, I'm sure that drink would be so good to take the edge off of hearing that news right there. And that is something that I'm like, no. Like you do have to know yourself, and that's why the work is important.
And the truth, right? The honesty, and like when you were like, I didn't tell you something, and then you came forward and you started telling me, I think the same thing would apply if you had been drinking alcohol. Yeah. It's how much truth you want to give. Because if I was like, well, Mischa, how do you feel about this? If you were like, oh, it's fine, you're lying to yourself. Yes. So if you tell me it's fine, as your coach, I can only give you what you give back to me, and we can only dive as deep as you allow yourself to go. And I think that that's important because I know in my experience, my God, I am like over 20 years into working with like coaches and therapists. Like I started when I was like 16, right?
Yeah.
And I want to say for more than half of it, I don't have an eating disorder. We never spoke about that. I only spoke about some of the eating issues I had probably 7 years ago.
Wow.
I had even started my coaching practice knowing, but never spoke to anyone about it. Ever. Because I didn't want to go there. And it's important to say that because you can lie and manipulate how your healing journey goes, and that's not doing you any service. So I think how real you are with it matters, because that's where you could decide and where it plays out in your life.
Big time. Especially, my goal is to, I know it'll show up, but my goal is to not be reliant on it as well, right? And I think that you can really have that dance. But
not with everything.
Not with everything.
And it's just honoring and respecting that.
Exactly.
And also like Mischa, who utilized that coping mechanism 4, 5, 6 years ago, she was just in it. She didn't even know it was a coping mechanism.
No.
I think that's important.
Because at the time, this is the day-to-day. This is life.
When you're in the depths of the addiction and the coping, or like even when I'd been in the depths of my eating disorder, I'm in it. Like you don't even see it. So like huge work and awareness for you to even be able to like, I see it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about, because I'm conscious of time.
Yes. Yeah.
And I want to make sure we talk about your business because like,
Amazing.
Again, this business did not exist when I met you. Like who you've become, how you're helping other people now with your magic, but a little bit about the awakening.
Yes.
The holy shit moment where you and I were talking every week and you're like, who am I? What is happening? And how that's transposed into like who you are and what you do. Like, let's talk about the holy shit moment, because I think 2 things happen. When you realize that everything that you were isn't, and you have this like identity crisis almost, you either run back to what was comfortable and what you've always known, or you're like, I'm spearheading forward. But there's this moment where you decide, am I going this way or am I going back that way? But that middle part is like, it's
turbulent.
So like, would love for you to share some of your experience and where it's led you today.
I will say that, that raw, tender, cracked open vulnerability of you feel reborn. You do. And maybe it sounds, very cliche.
But you don't know till you know, so it doesn't matter.
You really don't know. And you see the old you die. And, we think, I feel like just as humans, there's like, well, death just happens at the end of life, but there's so many versions of us that die. Everything, there's that loss, that death, the rebirth, like that happens throughout life. That's nature. That's, look at a snake shedding its skin, yes, right? Over and over and over. And that, just how I mentioned earlier about being like, wow, that person is not separate from me. Just because that version of me is not here anymore, it doesn't mean that person, is separate from me. She is me, right? Mm-hmm. That is just such in that moment, and everybody gets to, their own moments and their own findings on their journey. But for me, that moment right there was like, wow, it was a wholeness. It was an acceptance. It was a unity. And like an allowance, like for myself, like a permission to just continue to be the versions of myself, not necessarily having to do something about it.
What did you have to lose? Because when we move forward towards that truth and that new version of us, you're being asked to give up stuff and stuff you don't want to give up. Like, yeah. I didn't necessarily want to end my marriage. I didn't want to lose friendships. But like, who I am now and my truth. Like, I was comfortable. Heck, I had a great life. Like, but there's something else.
There's something else.
So what did you have to lose?
The job. That's a big one.
The financial stability.
Which is exactly the
which
financial
goes back
stability.
To one of your roots and triggers.
So, and it took me a freaking hot minute. The calling was louder and louder and louder, and until I was like, oh my God, I really have to leave this job. And for very good reasons. And it was just great to be able to listen to the calling. But within that, friendships.
Spotlight.
I said, I'm putting my music to the side. Music, like, I felt...
Years ago, you would have never...
No, I felt the ego taking over in that realm. And when you're at a crossroads with something like music, where it's like, well, there's creativity, and then there's like all this ego, and well, we got to do this and be like that, and da-da-da-da-da, and I've got
the persona.
I have an image to uphold. And those two were just not sitting well, and I just had to take a step back. And within that, there's been so many like little moments of identity, coming up. Well, that's how I once associated, but that's okay. And I don't have to be, attached to that right at this moment. And I can flow, just be fluid and keep on moving.
Job, friendships, identity, music.
Comfort. I think that's, let's be so for real, that's one of the biggest one. You are not comfortable through this. It's jarring, it's
scary. You have no idea what's on the other end.
It's exactly. And especially when you start getting the realizations that you're like, wait, is this me? Holy crap, am I thinking that? I think of like the Spider-Man meme where there's like the three Spider-Mans and they're all like looking at each other. When I say that, that's what I visualize. You do lose your old self.
And unfortunately, that also comes with relationships ending. And that's sad too, because sometimes you don't want the relationship to end, but it doesn't mean that it's going to follow into the new realm of you. Mm-hmm. Music, you still love it. And I think the integration of those pieces show up a little bit differently, like new friendships, new relationships. Oh, the way music is playing into business now. Mm-hmm. So like, tell us a little bit about your business and who you are, because like, I'm like biggest fan ever. I'm like, Mischa, you're gonna like change people's lives. Yeah,
I know you've been so supportive, and I love it, and just very encouraging really through it all. And so my business, Pink Noise. Pink Noise is such an extension of me. It is energy work, it is that creativity, it's the working one-on-one. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I use sound, Reiki, and divination as modalities to allow people to get closer to themselves and to awaken their inner energy alchemist. The work that we have done together has taught me that at the end of the day, it's us. We're the ones, you know, we're the
answers
ones that
are within us.
the answers are within us. And that's why for me, awakening your own inner energy alchemist is such a big piece, because I can't do that for you. I can allow you the space to be. I can allow you the tools, and
however real they want to show up.
However you choose to show up, which is also very rooted in my business with like a come as you are, because as you are is enough. You don't have to be anything else. You are great the way you are in this moment. This is where you are. And we have that power. So, you know, continuing to do the group events, continuing to do the one-on-one sessions, and really just diving in with people and connecting. It's been amazing. And sound is so powerful. Sound is just the vibrations, the frequency, the way it aligns with us. We all carry our own natural frequency at the end of the day. So it only makes sense that sound plays into that.
So if you're wondering if you are enough or ready to have a session with Mischa, now is the time.
Now is absolutely the time.
Now is the time. Yeah. And so we're going to be wrapping this up, but I also want to like recognize, I'm looking at this ring here. Oh. I'm seeing it for the first time in person.
I know.
You're going to be getting married. So there's so many great things that have happened. So even in the depths of loss, the depths of awakening, the darkness within the soul, Dad moving through this, life aligns the way it's supposed to.
It does.
Work, business, life, support, all of it. If there was anything that you were to say to somebody going through their personal journey of connecting to their truth and like that inner darkness and like, holy shit, do I go back to what's comfortable? Do I move forward? What would it be? What would you leave people with today? Putting you on the spot.
I know, putting me on the spot. That's okay. I think a really big thing is where you are now is enough. Who you are now is enough. And your journey is exactly that. Don't get caught up in comparison. Just show that compassion for yourself along the way. And yeah, continue to just be who you are and move in alignment at the end of the day.
It's been such a pleasure, Mischa. I'm so happy. And, you know, Mischa and I primarily work virtually together. And so, like, to have you here, I'm just so, so blessed, beyond blessed. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I love you.
Love you.